Okay, let's get going on our unit on or chapter on parallel lines. So what do we mean by parallel lines? Well, we've just been showing you some pictures of parallel lines. And if you see a couple of lines that look like that, if you see these little arrows right there, that means that P and Q are parallel. Well, parallel lines are lines that never intersect like these two. They go in the same direction, they stay the same distance apart, and they never intersect. However, if you take another line and draw it across a couple of parallel lines so that you have two different intersections like that, this is called a transversal. So that's kind of an important definition, a transversal. So when you have a transversal going across two parallel lines, that creates 8 angles. And it turns out that these angles have a special relationship that make them very predictable and very able to be calculated if you know any one of the 8 angles. If you know one of them, you can find them all. So it turns out that corresponding angles are angles that are in the same relative position. For example, in angle 1 right there, a corresponding angle to that would be angle 5 because they're in the upper left-hand corner of their respective intersections right there. Okay, keep that idea going. Alternate interior angles are angles that are inside the parallel lines, so inside of these two parallel lines, and that are on opposite sides. So if I look at angle 3, the alternate interior angle to that one would be angle 6. And I have another pair of those. That would be angle 4 and angle 5. And what do we know about alternate interior angles? Well, they are congruent. So if I knew angle 4's value, I could actually also know angle 5's value. Okay, alternate exterior angles are angles that are formed outside of the parallel lines here by this transversal, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal on the outside. So angle 1 and angle 8 would be considered alternate exterior angles, as would also angle 5 and angle, oops, that's on the inside. I meant to say, let's take that back off, angle 7 and angle 2. So those are another pair of alternate exterior angles. All right, adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines that add up to 180 degrees. So, for example, if I've got this parallel line, these two angles right here, 5 and 6, are adjacent angles along that line, and they add up to 180 degrees. Well, if you look closely, you can actually see that you got a pair of adjacent angles here, a pair of adjacent angles here, a pair of adjacent angles here, a pair of adjacent angles there. So you could literally find a number of angle pairs that are adjacent that add up to 180 degrees. Okay, something that we mentioned already is that two angles on opposite sides of each other when two lines cross are called vertical angles. And here's another picture of that. Here's two crossing lines. These two angles are across from each other, as well as these other two. And because of the way these angles are made, these vertical angles are congruent. They have the same value. Okay, so if we have a couple of problems here, such as you might see in Alex, give a pair of alternate interior angles. So if I look on the inside of my parallel lines, here's my parallel lines. find an angle on the inside, and then look on the opposite side and find another angle. So there's a pair of alternate interior angles. I could have also chosen 7 or 2 and got the same result. Okay, if two lines are parallel and cut by a transversal as shown below, if the measure of angle 7 is 122 degrees, then using what we have just learned, we are going to go ahead and say, okay, angle 5 is 122 degrees because it is a vertical angle to angle 7. Angle 1 is also 122 because it is a corresponding angle to angle 5, as well as angle 3 is a corresponding angle to angle 7, which makes it 122. All right, so I've got these alternate and exterior angles, and there we go. So what would a measure of angle 2 and 4 be? Well, I think I said these are alternate exterior angles. I just meant to say vertical angles. So now that we know those 4 angles, we're also going to be able to tell what the other angles are. Angles 2 and 4 can be found by just doing 122 minus, or excuse me, 180 minus 122. So we'll subtract right there. So 8, 7, 10, 10 minus 2 is 8. 7 minus 2 is 5, and there we go. So that's 58 degrees. That's 58 degrees. And so would these two be 58 degrees. And 58 degrees, okay. So now that we know that, what is the measure of angle 2 and 4? Well, angle 2, we just have to look at angle 2 is 58. What about the measure of angle 4? Angle 4 is off over in this direction. All right, so this is not looking too hard, is it? Okay, so here's another one. Two parallel lines are cut by a transversal as shown below. Measure of angle 4 is 64 degrees. So to find all the angles we'll find the angle that's vertical to it, would be angle 2, so that's 64. Its corresponding angle would be angle 8, which would make that 64. And its vertical angle would be angle 6, so that's also 64 degrees. Now to find the other angles, I just simply go 180 minus 64, and so I can do 8, 7, and then 10. 10 minus 4 is 6, 7 minus 6 is 1, and then 1 comes down, so 116 degrees is the value of each of these other angles. Okay, so each is a 116 degree angle. All right, pretty straightforward. I think these look pretty easy, don't you? Okay, so on Alex, it might look something like this. You got measure of angle 1 is 50. So let's fill that in there. So that means angle 2 would be 50. And then angle 3 would also be 50. And how do I know all of that? Well, we see that angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. And on Alex, a lot of times you'll have a drop-down menu where you can do that. So thus, angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent. I'm just going to abbreviate that word. That means that measure of angle 2 is equal to 50 degrees. We already displayed that anyway. So we see that angles 2 and angle 3 are corresponding. Okay, corresponding angles. And we see that angles P and Q are, the lines P and Q are parallel. So the corresponding angles and the parallel lines, that means that angles 2 and 3 are congruent. They're also, no, we said that they're, well, we could also say they're congruent. Yeah, that's the right word, because we'd already used corresponding in the upper part, right? All right, so that means the measure of angle 3 is also 50 degrees. So since angles 1 and 3 are on the outside of the diagram and are on opposite sides of the transversal and outside of these parallel lines, they are alternate exterior. So alternate exterior angles, then we also see that they are congruent. Okay, so the relationship between 1 and 3 is 1 and 3 and is an example of alternate, when parallel lines are cut by a transversal, alternate exterior lines, alternate exterior lines are congruent. And I'm going to just say that they are equal, but that means they're congruent. So you'll have a couple of problems where you have to go through these tables, find the missing angles, and then use the drop-down menus to show what property tells you what is going on there. Assignment number 89. So good luck and thank you very much.